Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie, and we are back with another team building episode where I go through and I give myself a budget and I try to put together the best team available using that budget. And this is just the way that I would do it. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is 100% the best possible team for 100,000 stubs. It just means that I think it's a really, really good team for 100,000 stubs, and that's what my budget is, by the way, 100,000 stubs. And this is probably the way that I would go about doing it if that were my budget. But anyways, this one's going to be a little bit different than the previous ones, because in the previous ones, I restricted it to only players on the market. This time I am opening that up. Since I have more stubs, I'm opening that up to collections and team epics. So this list was a lot more difficult to put together because I had to, pick and choose which epics that I did. And for this, I'm not going to go through and individually talk about each epic and everything. I may just mention that I got this player from that epic, or I used this player on my team, but he was part of the collection that went towards that epic or whatever. But the 5 epics that I was able to do and still come under my 100,000 stub budget, I was able to do the Royals, the Padres, the Brewers, the Twins, and the Tampa Bay Rays. So those are the 5 epics that I did. I felt like that gave me the most team variety, and I was able to fill fill most of my roster while still leaving me enough room to fill the rest of it with quality players. So I did those 5 epics. Now let's get into the team. Okay, guys, first we're going to start out with starting pitching, and the ace in this rotation is going to be the 87 overall Matt Garza, and you get this for completing the Tampa Bay Rays full collection. And this guy is a stud. He has studly per nines. I mean, that is diamond level per nines, 85, 80 hit per nine. And his control is fine. He's not like, that Bob Feller or something where his control is just going to be terrible. He doesn't throw super hard, but he has good pitch selection, and he'll be able to run it up to 93, 94 if you put some effort into it, and he has really good breaking stuff. But the big selling point on this card is definitely his per nines. And then because I was doing the Tampa Bay Rays collection, I decided to put Chris Archer in there too. And this one is more of an all-around guy because his stuff is amazing. He has really great pitch selection. He throws really hard, and his per nines aren't terrible. They're not as good as the Garzas, but 73 and 79 hit and K per nine respectively. That's enough to get the job done, and he's going to be a really, really solid number 2 for you in your rotation. Okay, this one was kind of tough because this was more of I needed this guy to be in my rotation to get me under budget more than this is the guy that I would want. And this would probably be my number 5 guy in the rotation, but I decided to go with the 82 overall Danny Duffy since I had already completed the Royals collection and it wouldn't cost me anything extra to get this guy. And he's not that bad. First of all, he's a lefty, so he provides you with that lefty presence in your rotation that you haven't gotten yet. His per nines are solid, kind of like the Garza, 74, 73 hit and K. That's solid, not great, but solid. And he throws hard enough. I mean, he's going to be running it up to 95, 96, and he's got a decent slider and a decent changeup. He's just a good all-around pitcher. Okay, and this would probably be my number 2 or number 3 pitcher in this rotation, but I decided to splurge a little bit and get the 87 overall Carlos Carrasco. He's not super expensive. You can pick him up for around 3,000 stubs, and on a budget like this, every now and then you need to overspend just a little bit just to solidify part of your team, and he has really good K per nine, pretty good hit per nine, very good walk per nine for a gold that already has good hit and K per nine. And his stuff is fantastic. He has a great 5-pitch mix. He runs it up into the mid to upper 90s. Just a great all-around pitcher, and definitely would be in the top half to middle of your rotation. Okay, and rounding out the back end of the rotation, I put the 82 overall Carlos Martinez. This was more of a money saver, but I still think that this guy has elite stuff for a silver. His hit and K/9 are average to slightly below average, but his stuff is just so wicked. Some of the best pure stuff in the game. He has a wicked slider, a very probably a plus changeup, and he throws gas. I mean, he's going to be mid to upper 90s for you. So if you really know how to spot your pitches, if you really know how to keep hitters off balance, you can really mitigate the hit and K/9 being maybe, a little bit subpar just by mixing your pitches well. So I like this guy as my number 4 or number 5 pitcher. Him and Danny Duffy are kind of interchangeable at this point. Okay, moving on to relievers. The first guy is this 89 John Axford. I got him for completing the Brewers collection. So I decided, I might as well just use him in my bullpen instead of going out and spending stubs on someone else. Saves me a lot of stubs, and it gives me a great arm with great per-9s and very serviceable stuff in the bullpen. This isn't a guy that I would recommend throwing versus lefties very often. You can maybe get by with it with 1 or 2 if you really know how to spot your slider and curveball, but he is devastating versus righties. He's very, very tough for right-handed hitters to pick up. Okay, I really felt like I needed to get a dominant left-handed arm in my bullpen, someone who can come in and devastate lefties, and he may not be the best versus righties, but he'll definitely be able to get the job done. So I went ahead and did the Twins team epic in this hypothetical thing to get the 91 overall Glen Perkins. His hit and K/9 is very comparable to John Axford, very, very good, well above average. And he has great stuff. He only has the 4-seam and slider mix, and that sucks. It'd be great if they added a changeup for him, but he throws hard enough. He's going to be mid upper 90s for you, and he has a really, really good slider that is very, very deceptive. It comes out of his hand really quick, looking like a fastball, and then it just kind of floats into the plate. Okay, next up is probably the sole reason why I decided to do the Royals epic. Well, it was him plus a couple other guys that you get, but the fact that you get this guy was just like, it was icing on the cake. It sold me on doing the Brewers or the Royals collection and epic. And that's the 85 Kelvin Herrera. In my opinion, this is probably the best right-handed reliever in the game. Even though his per-9s are very, very average for a reliever, they're still good, and they're still going to do like a good job of shrinking your opponent's PCI, but you don't get this guy for the per-9s. You get him for just the devastating stuff. He has one of the best fastball changeup mixes in this game, and he has a really good slider and a really good curveball to go along with that, and he is going to be hitting 100 to 101 consistently for you. And hey, for doing the Royals collection, you get a bonus reliever. You get the 89 Joakim Soria, slightly above average per-9s, not great, but very, very solid, and he has some of the most interesting pitches in this game. He doesn't throw super hard. He's going to be like 93 to 94, but he has this cutter that drops down to about 87, 88. It honestly, it's almost like a slider for most people. But the fact is he already has a slider that he throws even slower than that cutter, so it kind of has that Kenley Jansen effect, kind of like a poor man's Kenley Jansen, where he, that slider and the cutter look very similar, but they have much different speeds, and it's really, really deceptive. That's kind of what this guy is all about, but he also has this just insane ephus curveball that he throws at like 69 miles an hour. It's so slow, and it's so hard for guys to wait back on that. Okay, and now we had to start spending some stubs in order to fill out the last 3 spots in our bullpen. The first guy, I knew I needed 2 lefties. So the first guy that I went with is the 76 Wagner, and honestly, guys, if you are good with your PCI, this 76 Wagner is pretty much just as good as the 95 Billy Wagner. There's not a lot that separates the two. They're very, very similar pitchers. And this one has, well above average per nines, diamond level per nines. You know, of course, except his walk per nine, which you'll definitely have to work around that. He throws hard. He's going to be throwing, you know, upper 90s consistently for you, and he has a good slider that goes along with it. Everybody kind of knows that this is a great budget pitcher, but this is definitely a guy. He's a money saver for me. He's just a total package. I love this guy, and I would definitely have him in any budget bullpen, just so I can allocate that money I save. I can allocate it elsewhere because he only costs about 300 stubs. Up next is Jake Diekman. I've talked about him a shit ton. Don't need to say anything else. Let's move on. Okay, and for my last righty reliever, I decided to splurge just a little bit and get the Glacies. I thought it was important that I get a good power throwing right-handed reliever that had just a wicked sinker, so that if I found myself in situations where that sinker could be useful, I could use this guy. And he's not that expensive. He only cost me about 1,300 stubs to get. That's totally worth it. He has a good slider too, and he has a very, very deceptive changeup. Okay, guys, moving on to position players. This is the reason we did that we had done the Brewers epic, the Brewers team epic, is you get the 92 overall Jonathan Lucroy. And a lot of people love this card, a lot of people hate this card. I kind of fall somewhere in between. He played okay for me. He didn't play great. He didn't play terribly. He played somewhere in the middle. But he still, for whenever you're running a budget squad, a 92 overall catcher that has mid-80s contact and, you know, lower 60s power with good vision, that's not going to kill you defensively, I think that is a very, very valuable card for a team like this. And I think that was important, and that's the reason why I did the Brewers epic, because other than him and John Axford, there really isn't a ton of reason to do that, and all the other players I found from there, I could have found just as, you know, players that were just as good. But, you know, he's fantastic for a team like this. So, Jonathan Lucroy. At first base, I wanted to get a left-handed power bat, and since I did the Brewers collection and Epic, I already had this 82 overall Eric Thames, or Thames. Is it Eric Thames? I can never get that right, but the Eric Thames. And yeah, so I decided just to go with him. He's a solid left-handed power bat to plug in at first base, and he doesn't cost us anything extra. Okay, and at second base, you know, since we did the team epic for the Twins and we got Glen Perkins, we were left with a couple of gold players that, like, man, I was really iffy on whether I wanted to put them in my lineup. But after thinking about it, man, it's so hard to find a second baseman that has upper 80s power that's going to, you know, just be a huge power threat for you in your lineup, a good right-handed power threat. Especially at a position as thin as second base. So I decided to just go ahead and put Brian Dozier on the list, not to mention that I'm actually, like, friends with Brian Dozier. Me and him went to college together at Southern Miss. But yeah, so I decided to say, give the old buddy a nod and put Brian Dozier on the list. And then at third base, I had a similar dilemma. Do I put this Miguel Sano on the team? Do I start him? And at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, I do. I put this guy at third base. He's another right-handed power threat. Very similar to the Dozier in the fact that he has great power versus both sides. His contact isn't the best, and he has really low vision. So you have to be very good with your PCI. But if you get a hold of one, it's going a long way. So yeah, I decided to put those two guys in there. Plus, it saves me a ton of money to go and spend elsewhere where I needed it, because after the team epics, guys, I only had like 20K left. So I had to, you know, kind of use my resources wisely, and a lot of those resources are about to get spent on the next player. Okay, at shortstop, man, it was getting super hard to find anybody that I could use that was worth a damn. But even though I had the stubs, like, there's such a big gap between, like, the good shortstops and the not so good shortstops. And then there's one player in between them that I could afford that is pretty doggone good, but not like elite, like Corey Seager or somebody like that would cost 80,000 stubs or something, or like, you know, the terrible players. He was firmly in between them, and he was totally affordable, and that is Trey Turner. Trey Turner has great contact. He has a little bit of pop versus righties, none versus lefties really, but he can make solid contact versus lefties too. He's going to play solid defense for you out there in the field, not great, but very solid. And he has 96 speed. He's going to be a guy that you can either hit at the top or the bottom of your order, and he's going to be very effective for you. And we all know how overpowered speed is in this game. You know, if you can get a guy like this on base to lead off an inning, it is so advantageous for you. So I decided to spend 15,000 stubs and go with Trey Turner and put myself kind of in a bind going down the rest of the way, but I was able to figure out a way to get everybody in and still fill out the rest of my team. So let's move on to left field. In left field, I decided to put the 92 overall Lorenzo Cain there. This is a card that he is going to be the guy that hits behind one of your lefty hitters. The guy that, you know, whenever you have a lefty up late in the game and they want to go to a lefty in their bullpen, they're going to think twice, because if they get through that guy, they're going to have Lorenzo Cain coming up next, who is just a monster versus lefties. And he's very, very serviceable against righties. 79, 50, 72 vision, very serviceable. He's going to cover more ground than any left fielder you've ever had. He's a natural center fielder, but I put him in left because the center fielder that I have in the thing has a better arm than him, and I wanted that arm out there in center field. He also has fantastic speed and stealing, kind of like the Trey Turner. This ended up being a very, very fast team, a team that could you know, do a lot of things good on the base paths. So yeah, Lorenzo Cain in left field, he's going to be solid for you for sure. Okay, and in center field, we got the 5-tool threat, Melvin Upton himself. And offensively, this guy, very similar to the Dozier and the Sano. You know, low vision, not the best contact, but a good amount of power. A guy that has that's going to get a lot of extra base hits for you, a lot of doubles, a lot of triples, and a handful of home runs too. And he's going to play good defense with a great arm out there. He's going to be able to save you a few runs from guys tagging up at third or guys trying to take an extra base or something like that. He's going to shut those guys down, and he is going to just be a demon on the base paths too. 93 speed with 89 stealing. So right now we already have 3 guys who are just amazing on the base paths, and the next guy is going to make us, you know, even that much better. But yeah, Melvin Upton, I couldn't, on a team like this, I just could not see a way that he doesn't make the team, in all honesty. Okay, and in right field, I had a lot of debate with myself on this, whether I wanted to put a right-handed power bat or try to find a left-handed power bat to stick in right field, or if I just wanted to go with the speed theme and, you know, pick a guy that's going to play great defense for me, be a speed demon, get on base a lot. So I decided to go with the 86 overall Tony Gwynn. Your PCI is going to be about as big as it can be. He's not going to hit many home runs for you or anything like that, but you're not going to have to worry about a platoon for him either, because he hits both sides about equally as good. And he's he has great defense, a great arm, and he has a lot of speed. And, you know, what can you do whenever you're putting a team like this together? Sometimes, like, a theme will emerge out of it, and it turns out that the theme of this team happened to be defense and speed, with a couple guys in there that have really solid power that can give you good power production. And because I didn't have, like, I didn't have a lineup full of power guys, I decided to kind of get a couple budget power guys for my bench. Really, maybe just one. I don't know. Let me look. No. I think I would classify that as a few, actually. So anyways, yeah, let's get to the 5 guys that we put on our bench. Okay, the first guy is JD Martinez, just an absolute stud of a bat. But you don't want him that much in the field, really, if you can help it, because he's not very good. He's not very reliable. He does have a strong arm, but really you just get this guy for his extremely powerful and extremely consistent bat. And if you have that on the bench, it's very valuable. If you want to platoon him with somebody, you can, but he works just as well as like a pinch hitter or something. Another theme that I noticed kind of running through this was that I didn't have that many left-handed bats in my left-handed power bats, at least, other than like Eric Thames, in my lineup. So I was like, I kind of need to get one or two on my bench and see how that works out. So I decided to grab the 80 overall Corey Dickerson and use him in that spot. You know, a guy that you can bring in, you can start him if you want to, in you know, left field or somewhere like that. If you think that you're going to be facing a righty or something, just to take out a little speed and put in a little power, you know. I think that he would get a lot of utility on a team like this, so I decided to put him on the team. The third guy that I decided to put on here, I kind of splurged a little bit here too, but I got super utility gold player Jose Ramirez. You know, switch hitter, can do a lot of things really well. I mean, right now he's playing up with inside edge and he's 99-70 versus righties. I mean, that you would probably want to start him today, and I wouldn't blame you. He can play second, short, or left field. He plays average defense, and he has above average wheels, though. So he just does a lot of things well, and I think he's a great piece to have on your bench. I got this Meyers card on the bench because he can play 4 different positions, and I didn't have to spend anything on him since we had already done the Padres team epic. You know, he's just kind of a guy, kind of a poor man's BJ Upton. He doesn't play as good a defense. He doesn't run as fast. He has worse contact and worse power, but it's just like he's slightly worse in everything. He's not like significantly worse in anything. So yeah, you could put this guy at first base too, but I think you would start to get a little too righty heavy then. But he would provide you with some more speed at first base. I mean, that's about as fast as you're going to get for a first baseman with 72 speed. So yeah, he was cheap. I didn't have to spend anything on him. And yeah, you know, I thought he was a good guy to put on the bench. Then finally I put Braun. And Braun is just kind of like JD Martinez. He's just a solid all-around hitter. I didn't have to spend anything on him. He has you know, he has average speed. Against righties, he's not going to be like, you know, really all that great hitting-wise, 73-68. That's serviceable, but it's not great. But he'd be a very solid option if, you know, you needed to stick a righty in there to face a left-handed pitcher or something. You might find yourself in that situation, and I think Braun would, you know, he'd be a good guy to plug in there. So, yeah, guys, that is going to do it for the 100K squad. This squad ended up coming in at a whopping 99,304 stubs. I was able to put this team together just under budget. You still have 700 stubs if you wanted to make like some changes yourself or something like that. But yeah, guys, that was the $100 team, and I will see you guys when I see you. So yeah, peace.